Okay, it's the end of the session. This is Penny, who's sit, and this is Copper, and this is the roadmap to success. Now, basically, excited urination is one of the primary things we wanted to work on. And so, do you remember the other thing that we were going to talk about? Think about that.
Dogs guarding the kennel.
Dogs guarding the kennel. So we'll talk about that here in a sec, and the toys. All right. So basically, when you have a dog that has an excited urination problem, it's a lot of it comes from a lack of control. And so the first part of the session, we talked a lot about control. We talked about increasing their exercise. We talked about getting a little robot that I like for dogs. We talked about tossing the treats up and down the stairs. The stairs using the laser scent games. Make sure you Google scent games and try a couple of those before you buy a book. But because their breed, I think that will be really helpful for them to start doing some work with their nose. It's very physically draining. So I'd like you to come up with a formula, trying different things out. Yes, you're growling, you're guarding, huh? That would normally be a consequence I would make you. If you do it again, I'm gonna make you get down off the couch. So I believe in consequences, not punishment. So basically, some of the other things we went over would be, well, basically coming up with a roadmap. Oh yes, you're both doing it. All right, so we'll talk about that in a sec. But basically coming up with the right amount of exercise to put them in a position to succeed. So a walk is great but for stimulation, but it's not really an efficient form of exercise. Also for us, it's cold in the Midwest. We got to drive, we got to get all bundled up, get them on harnesses. It's just a big production. And they are also reactive. So that makes it even another factor that we don't want to deal with. So tossing the treats up and down the stairs, remember to do that with an empty stomach the first time, and toss those with the dogs independently the first time until you find out what their maximum number is, and count each down up as 1. And once you know what their maximum number is, you want to exercise them 50 to 25% of what their maximum number is several times a day. So maybe we do the treat toss in the morning when they have 2 energy zones or bursts of energy, one in the evening, one in the morning. So when we wake up, if we do that with an empty stomach, we can burn off some excess energy. And then when we come home, we might do the laser. And then eventually, and we're doing the stairs, probably do it with them separately. You could probably do it with them together, but we want to see how they do. She wants to eat. She's hungry. And she's like, he got most of the treats, darn it. So basically, and then we might do the laser game. We have the robot to occupy them during the day. We'll talk about the changes we made during the day. Then we might do a walk or a game of fetch or whatever it is. So the idea is you really want to give them exercise about every 2 to 4 hours throughout the day, and because they sleep about 17 hours a day. So now the kennel dogs are also kenneled, but they don't mark, they don't have accidents, they don't really destroy anything, and they don't have a problem unless there's some toys around. Certain toys that get put away, which we'll talk about in a minute. So I recommend the guardians just starting closing. We're down here in the basement. This is the main hangout room, and just putting the baby gates up. This way the dogs can be free. They have area. If they're not chewing anything up, we don't have to worry about it. Instead of being a kennel for too long, the kennel, they're in the kennel for slightly too long. If a dog's in a kennel for longer than 4 hours, it develops cortisol, which is a stress hormone in their blood, and that amplifies a lot of things. And I saw some signs of a little bit of cortisol in his blood just from jittery and twitchiness. And so if we could take away their being in a kennel, because they're really just conserving energy when they're in a kennel as well. And so if we can have them free, they can run around and chase each other. They could chase the robot. We can get an eye fetch and let them play fetch with each other. There's a lot of little things that they can do, and they can also sleep a lot, but they can kind of do whatever they want. And so that'll help. So we're not bottling them up during the day, and we're increasing their exercise. Those should have both of those together should work well. Now, we also talked about some rules and some structure. We'll talk about rules first. One of the rules is not being allowed in the furniture, because the higher they are, the more rank or status they have. I'd like the guardians to start using a dog bed for them and putting it in front of the TV. If you want a reminder on how to teach them to go to the dog bed on command, message me independent of this, and I can share a link that I did it with another client. It'll show you how to easily get them to go to the dog bed on command. Let me see. And then this would be off limits for a minimum of 30 days, or as long as the problem's still going on. Usually it's about closer to 60 days. And remember, you can always go down to their level. They just can't come up to our level. Remember to get the X mats for the couch and put tinfoil on the other chairs, and then eventually start splitting those X mats in half and putting one of them on the other things as well. And eventually they'll just get out of a practice of getting up here on the furniture. Sit. Other rules. The humans already watched some of my videos, since they already were kind of on to structure feeding. I made a couple adjustments. So remember that whoever's feeding them should eat first. Then she would eat. When she's eating, he's not allowed in the room. Actually, when we put the food down, they're not allowed in the room. We escort the dogs out. Then we put the food in the bowls and we chase them out anytime with the third consequence, anytime they try to come in. And then once they stay out of the room, then we lean against the counter and eat something in 5 more bites, something crunchy. Now, when I get done eating, then or whoever's feeding, then we're going to invite Penny in. Penny gets to come in and he does not get to come in. When Penny's eating, she has to have to look over her shoulder for him. And then when she's done, she has to leave the area. Then we invite him in and Copper comes in and he eats while she's not allowed in the kitchen. And that helps us practice enforcing boundaries. And that's Penny. And it also helps them develop a little bit of self-control. Just because I want something doesn't mean I get it. And that's wonderful. Developing self-control will be very beneficial for him and his submissive and excited urination. It'll also be a little bit helpful for Penny because she's used to demanding things and getting her way. So the more she has to earn things, we'll talk about that in a minute, the better for her as well. And then if, what do you call it? If they come over, little cat's scratching. But if they come over and like they sniff their bowl and they walk away and they don't eat it, as soon as they walk 5 feet away, pick up the bowl, dump it empty, and put the empty bowl back down. And the dog can go lick their empty bowl once or twice, but after that they leave the room and they don't eat again to the next meal. And I've had dogs go long. If your dog goes longer than 3 days, let me know. But usually it means somebody's stealing and getting them some food. But dogs eat in the order of their rank. It's the most important activity for them. So just adding dominion to this will really be beneficial. Okay, other rules, not being allowed within 7 feet of a human who is eating at the dinner table or anywhere. Not being allowed in the kitchen when we're eating. Remember to do those practice rounds of the bacon or the roast beef. Not bacon because somebody in the house really doesn't like bacon. Their face got all scrunchy when I said bacon. But some lunch meat that's going to smell. Some leftover steak that, fat that you can, the smell is everything to dogs. We want it to smell like we're cooking. And remember, practice cooking or pretend to eat. And once the dog, and enforce the boundary, and once the dog sits or lies down, then we can go ahead and we want everybody to see how pretty you are. Handsome, I should say. And once they lay down, then we actually serve the real meal or cook the actual food. Remember don't let them run up and down stairs ahead of you, go through doors ahead of you, walk ahead of you on a leash. All those things are leadership qualities for dogs. I also make them sit at the door before I let them in or out. Remember, keep on double the length of time. Sit. They don't sit within 3 seconds. Walk away, sit down, wait 1 minute, come back. Sit. Don't sit within 3 seconds. Walk away for 2 minutes, then for 4 minutes, then for 8 minutes. And if he sits and she doesn't, he gets to go out. As soon as he sits, that door opens and she doesn't get to go out. Now, the guardians don't give them treats except for to go in their kennel, and they go to their kennel really well as a result of that. But a lot of people are in a hurry to stop giving their dog treats. We don't want to give them treats to the point where we do when we're training them, where we're giving them ad nauseum, because we really want to cement that this is a great way to get the treats. But eventually we make it every other time, then every third time. The best way to treat your dog is when it's just randomly, and they don't know when it's coming. So the guardians here, what I'd like to see them do, and I'm going to leave the bag of treats that I have left here so you'll know what I use, which they both really like, is to just take a little plastic bag of ramekin and put like 15 treats in it, or 16 so there's 2 dogs, and then try to use all those treats throughout the day. So it doesn't have to be 16, whatever number is appropriate. And one of the things I like the guardians to do is get the dogs competing for obedience. Pull out 1 treat and say, come. And that was a cat getting out, that's why the camera moved. Say, come. Whoever comes first and sits gets the treat. Whoever comes second doesn't get a thing unless they come at the same time. So I'm paying and rewarding the dog that obeys and does the thing that I want. The dog that doesn't, Penny disagrees, but she's probably be on the short end of the stick. But the other dog doesn't get anything. This is a version of Coffee for Closers, and if you've never seen that scene, go to YouTube and just search Coffee and Closers. It's a scene from the movie Glengarry Glen Ross. It's worth watching. It's funny. But it's kind of a version of Nothing in Life is Free, or making the dog earn it, that helps the dog feel better about themselves and boost their self-esteem and confidence. Now for the stairs, I have videos for that if you want to teach them to wait at the top of the stairs when you go up and down the stairs. But right now it's not a factor because they have a baby gate that prevents the dogs from going up and down the stairs. Okay, so that's some examples of rules. Also look for ways to delay gratification. When you're playing fetch, make them sit before you pick up the ball, or make them sit and wait for a second before you throw the ball. We talked about having them come in the kitchen and clean up food that we drop. Make them wait. Just because it's on the floor, there's food there. Am I going to get that food? And they'll try to come in, and you enforce the boundary over and over again. When they finally lay down and you get done cooking, then you invite the dog to come over. Remember, when it licks it up, say the word housekeeping or maid service or whatever you want. 1-word commands I like. And then you actually have a command word. Housekeeping means come and clean up the junk on the floor. Okay, what else do we want to go over, Penny? We went over, in the video above, we talked about a lot of interrupting play. And when she does that, maybe passive training, sing, So every time, sing song or whatever, or vocalize or whatever you want to say, eventually you could say sing, and she'll come and sing you a song like I do for Grumble for my dog. So basically, let me see, how many toys do they have, by the way?
20, 30.
Okay, so a dog should have at least 20 toys, and since there's 2 dogs, probably want to see that closer to the 30. We want a variety of toys so they have things to chew on and to play with. You want me to get up, buddy? Okay, I'll let you. Normally, I wouldn't allow a dog to do this, but this is the end of the session. I don't live here, so I can spoil them a little bit. Yes, buddy. Don't take advantage of it, though. Make me look bad in front of my minions. So we also talked about structure. And for structure, I often do what I call petting with a purpose and passive training. I talked about it a little bit earlier. But petting with a purpose is petting the dog, initiating, telling the dog to sit. Right now, he's nudging me. He's telling me to pet him. There we go. So what I did is I told him I wanted to come here, and I petted him to reward him for going here. If he nudges me with his nose like he's doing right now, he's telling me, pet me. And if I pet him, that reinforces, yes, you're in charge of me. But when he warns me not to do things, I don't listen to him. Come, that could be passive training. We'll talk about that in a sec. But that confuses him into thinking he has more authority than he has. And then when he tells me what to do and I don't do it, that stresses him out. Sit. And so the more that happens, the more cortisol will have in his blood, and it's going to amplify his submissive urination. So for petting with a purpose is when the dog initiates contact with you, you tell the dog to sit, pet it under its chin, say the word sit and only the word sit, and you pet him as long as you want. And if you come in the room, you see someone petting the dog and the dog is standing, you assume they forgot, you say paycheck, they stop petting, tell the dog to sit. When they sit, they pet him under the chin to make that nose go up, which is a good body mechanic for confident dogs like that. Yes, sit. And then we say the word sit, and that's it. And then we can explain to the person, no, I asked him to sit before he came in the room. When you closed the door, he stood up. Maybe use the word paycheck if you suspect somebody's doing that, and also use the word, I use recognize or reward. If the dog came and sat and I missed it, say recognize and reward so I do it, because what will happen is the dog will start prepaying for attention. Now, we also want to use passive training. So when she was doing her singing thing, every time she sings like that, you can pet her and say sing. Now, you have to be careful with that, because when she was doing that, she was actually doing that to protest. So that can kind of confuse her state of mind, but it's a good example of passive training. So every time your dog sits, pet it and say sit. Every time it jumps in your lap when it's back allowed on the lap and it's getting an invitation, say the word lap. So later on, you can say lap, and the dog runs up to your lap. If your dog kisses you, say kisses. If the dog starts licking you and you don't want to be licked, then it has to get off the couch. Create a consequence for that. And do it the first lick. Don't let them lick, and then they don't know why. Oh, evidently the 19th lick gets me kicked off the couch, so I'll only lick 18 times. No, first lick, boom, you're down. And remember, you have a window of 3 seconds to correct or reward your dog for them to have the ability to make that connection. It has to be repeated over and over again. Dogs look through consistency, repetition, and good timing. So be consistent on your timing. Now, passive training, like I said, is just waiting for the dog to voluntarily offer you a behavior they want and recognizing it and rewarding them for doing it. So every time your dog comes to you, pet it and say come. Every time it eats, say passive training. Maybe right now we're saying feast for one of the dogs, but maybe come up with another word for the other dog. So one of them's coming over here, come. That's a perfect example of classical, what I call passive training. Sit, that's another version of it. Now I stopped petting him because he got on top of me. And then he wants attention. He's like, well, I'll get even closer to you because since you seem to like petting me. And as soon as he gets off me completely, I'll start petting him. And this is a microcosm of what I want the guardians to get in the habit of doing. When they're doing the wrong thing, we're going to stop. When they do the right thing, we're going to lavish attention and reward them and say the command word. Now, he's just going to snuggle in there because he's used to doing this. But I stopped petting him because I didn't invite him to do this. Off. So I had to shift a little bit to get his last couple of paws off me, but then I rewarded him for this. This creates a command word. Remember to do the leaving command? So go to each room in the house and toss the treat out. So when the dog goes and gets it, licks it up, say the word out, and then do that with every doorway in your home. Also do it with going into the kitchen, into the bedroom, into the den, into the basement, or whatever it is. Let me see, what else? The toys. So basically, it might be, I'm guessing it's probably jealousy from what was described, but Penny will, sometimes she gets possessive of a toy, and if the guardian takes it and puts it in her kennel, then she starts guarding the area around her kennel. Now, I'm going to give you the way that I solve that if it is a resource guarding issue, but it might be something else, but same technique should work. So what I would do is if she starts in that guarding mode, go grab a leash, attach the leash to him, and then one of you would stand next to her, and one of you would get with him and go way across the room to the other side of the room. Then start walking towards her. Now, when you get to the point where she starts lowering her head and staring or baring her lips or growling, or ears come forward, her tail goes up, stops breathing or breathes really heavy, gets stiff, that's her saying, hey, you're getting too close, I'm about to strike. So the idea is when we're walking towards her, we're going to take note of how close we are. Let's say we're at 12 feet when she kind of lowers her head and stops breathing and gets stiff. She's saying, okay, I'm getting ready to. The whole point of this is to not push her to the point where she is reacting. So I noticed that at 12 feet. I go, okay, so me and my buddy Copper here turn around and walk away. And eventually when we walk away, she fires up, she relaxes. Then we would have the person that's with her has a treat ready. And when that person's ready, say they nod at us, we start walking towards her. Now 13 feet, let's say, is the distance that she got stiff at last time. So when we get to 14 feet, the person who's next to her drops a treat. So it just drops right in front of her. And then the person with Copper turns and walks. So after she looks up, we walk away. So what we're saying is when we approach, you don't have to guard your stuff because we're not here to take it. And basically what we're saying is we want her to as soon as she gets stiff, she's saying I'm uncomfortable. Well, then a treat comes, she gets something positive, and then we walk away. And we keep on coming back and forth at that until she seems pretty relaxed and she's not really even paying attention to us. Then we go back to that 13 feet, and then we stop at that point, and the person drops a treat, and we walk away. When we can get that happening 5 times in a row, then we go to 12 feet and 11 feet and 10 feet. And after a while, she's just like, I don't know why I had a problem with Copper coming. Whenever he approaches me when I have toys, treats fall from the sky. He's actually the bringer of treats. It's just creating a positive association. So after a while, Copper she won't have a need to guard. But anytime that she does it, whether it's food or, well, food is a little different. If she does it for anything, make sure you just take note of that and come back and practice that and just take care of it once and for all by doing that. And if it resurfaces, just go back to the same technique. Let me see, is there anything else I'm forgetting, Copper? It's like, yes, give me more treats. Is there anything else we want to go over?
I don't think so.
All right. So now there are probably things, what I'd like you guys to do is set a reminder. I'd like you to come back and watch this video again in about 2 weeks. Ideally, it'd be nice if you watched it every week because there's going to be little bits of it that you're going to forget to pet with a purpose or passive training or whatever it is. But the idea is really to do this comprehensively, not to just do one little thing and the next week do another thing. Oh, also teaching them tricks and commands. Make sure that you guys do that. I'd like each guardian, I started showing how to do the hurricane command, which could be the first one. But I'd like the guardians to take turns each Sunday or Saturday or what day of the week. One of them says, okay, I'm going to be in charge and I'm going to go to YouTube and search for easy dog tricks and start training the dog how to roll over. And then all week long, once the dog knows it, and teach the dog separately, once they know it, they have to roll over to go outside or to come upstairs or eat their food or anything. And after a while, they get more and more in tune to doing that. And then at the end of the week, the other guardian takes over and teaches the dog separately a new trick or command. If you teach roll over, play dead should be the next one. They're kind of linked. And then basically, you alternate every week for 8 weeks. At the end of 8 weeks, now the dogs have 8 new commands or ways to redirect them. They have seen the humans practice acting like a leader because they're the ones involved in the dogs learning these new skills. Some of these skills require discipline, which will help with excited and submissive urination. The dogs are also learning new skills, which boosts their self-esteem and confidence. And they have more respect for the humans because the humans are ones involved in them learning that new skill. It really accomplishes a whole bunch of things. And a lot of my clients actually find it really fun. I have clients now that are going and grabbing beers for their clients out of the fridge, closing doors, turning on light switches. There's all sorts of... I have one client that has taught their dog to wipe its feet when it comes in the house. Those are things that you can find on YouTube and in Google. So I'd like you to do those and get the dogs to the point where they have 8 new commands, because I really think it's going to help her come down a little bit. It's going to help him come up a little bit in confidence. Now, if your dog is doing well and then after a while stops doing well, go back and practice that technique. And like I talked about in the video above, create the easiest version of it possible and help the dog practice step 1 over and over and over again until the dog has step 1. Then do step 2 and step 3. And do all these independently once the dog knows how to behave for all the steps, and we do it all together, but again, in the easiest capacity possible. And keep on doing that until eventually the dog can do it more and more realistic until it does it with a plum. So in the video above, I talked about teaching the dog to go away and go to the dog bed. Well, just keep on tossing those and then break it down into individual steps, and eventually, and again, knocking on the walls like I talked in the video above, all those things are going to help set your dog up for success. Penny, Copper, this is the hand motion I make to get dogs to come. Penny. As you see, it works pretty well because it looks like I have something in my hand. This handsome guy with the short coat is Copper, and this long-haired beauty is Penny. Yes, you give me the stink eye, aren't you? She's like, give me more treats, damn it. We'll do that off camera. Well, this is the roadmap to success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog. Only sometimes you mean it.